Most people really didn't have much of an idea about who Guy Ritchie was until 2009's Sherlock Holmes came out, and that was arguably due to the presence of Jude Law and Robert Downey Jr. more than the director. This isn't to say that Guy Ritchie was a complete unknown before then, but his two most famous entries prior to that were arguably Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and Snatch, both of which came out almost a full decade before Sherlock Holmes did in 2009 and its excellent sequel in 2011. Regardless of when you started paying attention to Guy Ritchie films, however, anybody who's watched them knows that they have an incredible amount of visual style in the movies. There's a very distinct feel whenever a person watches a Guy Ritchie movie, and his direction and just the lavishness of the experience that you get in his movies is something that's very familiar and almost unmistakable after you've watched several of his movies. 2015 brings us the adaptation of The Man from U.N.C.L.E. with Superman's Henry Cavill and the Lone Ranger's Armie Hammer. Two great clefted chins on one screen. And as with his earlier entries, there's a great deal of style. But is there any substance? Let me in. Sort of. No. Let me in. I really wanted to like this movie. I really wanted to like this movie. I was excited about all the trailers. The trailers looked good, and you know, I've seen Snatch and I've seen Lock, Stock, and they were both, you know, largely enjoyable movies with several very memorable characters in them. And of course, I love both of the Sherlock Holmes movies, and I really wanted to like this movie. But I sat down on a couch one night to watch this with my wife, and we got, I don't know, called a third of the way through the movie, and she turned and looked at me and was like, "This movie is so awkward. What is going on here?" And I was like, "Well, it's the first third of the movie. It's they got to build. Yeah, it's kind of awkward." And we stopped watching it. And I went out and I think I played board games that night with some friends and completely forgot about the movie. And then later on tonight, earlier this evening, not later on tonight, yes, later on tonight, in the future, I watched the movie and then came back in time to write the review. Yeah. I sat down and I was leafing through the movies online on my server to watch, and The Man from U.N.C.L.E. was there. And I'm, okay, sure, let's finish this up. And I started watching the movie again, and it's just... visually, like every other Guy Ritchie movie on the face of the planet, it's lavish, it's lush, the set dressings are phenomenal, and it's not because the characters aren't there. The characters are absolutely there. Armie Hammer and Henry Cavill do a fantastic job in their respective roles. You know, Armie Hammer, God love him. I'm delighted to see him in another movie after the somewhat breathtaking disappointment that was Disney's facelift on The Lone Ranger. But you know, he did an outstanding job. They both really did. And I can't for the life of me remember this just breathtakingly beautiful woman's name. She plays the German, Alicia Vikander, from the earlier sleeper hit Ex Machina. Was also in it as an East German Gabi, a mechanic. Also did a fantastic job. Hugh Grant, Jared Harris, lots of sleeper names in it. So it wasn't lacking for set dressing. It wasn't lacking for characters. The story was there. The stunts were there. There were just so many moments when it was like, where's the meat and potatoes? There's clearly build up in several of the scenes that just never pays off whatsoever. You know what? Yeah, it just never really pays off whatsoever. you know, there's this moment in the movie where the American agent and the Russian agent are going back and forth, and you know, you think it's going to be an Abbott and Costello kind of a, they play off of each other the entire time sort of thing, but that's not what it is at all. They're both just kind of pricks to each other, and there's this moment when they're trying to escape and they're on a boat, and the Russian agent assures the American that he can drive better, and so there's driving around, and of course there's a little bit of a shtick moment where the American agent goes flying off of the back of the speedboat as they're being chased, and there's a little bit of a ha-ha, and then the American agent gets this look on his face as if he's going to go and do something permanent about the bad guys chasing the Russian, and then have words with the Russian, and there's build-up, and there's build-up, and then nothing happens. Not only does nothing happen in the scene, but the bad guys end up catching up with the Russian and blowing his boat up and leaving him for dead in the water. The entire time, the American agent is just sitting there watching in a pickup truck when he could have done something, but he's just kind of sitting there eating stolen lunch and drinking wine that he found in the front seat of this pickup truck. And it's just like, that's the payoff? I mean, yes, he realizes that the bad guy's in a world of hurt after his boat gets blown up, or that the Russian, rather, is in a world of hurt after his boat gets blown up, but it just makes the American seem like an asshole. And the whole movie's like that. There are these brilliant stunt build-ups, and you just never get anything out of them. At no point do these guys ever end up working together, and in being, it never turns into a buddy cop, a buddy agent movie, which, yeah, I guess for the sake of stereotypes, isn't a horrible thing, but there's never any cohesion between the two of them whatsoever. At the same time, the story is so ham-fisted with how the Russian agent, Ilya Kuryakin, Russian name is Russian, the American agent's name is Napoleon Solo. The names, gotta love the 60s. Anyway, the Russian story arcs are so ham-fisted. The Russian clearly has a horrible, horrible temper problem, which comes up several times in the movie, but it's never resolved. And not only is it never resolved, but it's hinted at several times, yet never causes trouble. There's never an unfortunate moment when the Russian's temper gets a hold of him and causes a problem that the two agents must then get themselves out of. The expected story arc of, two agents start out, not liking each other that much, followed by, two agents' dislike of each other and inability to work together causes problems, followed by disastrous fumbling of the ball, followed by the top of the arc, which is the agents finally grudgingly realize that they both know how to do their jobs, and then they begin working together in order to, steal the MacGuffin or fight the bad guy or whatever. And that's what leads you into, say, the last half of the second act or the beginning of the third act of the movie, but you just never get there. The arc for this movie is kind of we're going up, fuck it. And it's so disappointing. There's so much good material waiting to be taken advantage of in this movie. And they just never get there. They just never get there. I don't know. It's just disappointing. So much wasted potential in this movie. That's all I can say. It's a great deal of wasted potential.
Come on and let me in. Immigration